Support for this podcast and the following message comes from Marvel Television and Disney+. From the twisted minds behind WandaVision comes an all-new Marvel original series, Agatha All Along. This Halloween season, revenge is a witch. You don't want to miss Agatha Harkness's return to darkness as she assembles a coven to regain her power and wreak vengeance. Starring Kathryn Hahn and Aubrey Plaza, Marvel Television's Agatha All Along, now streaming only on Disney+.
Are you ready to move your career forward? Make your comeback with Purdue Global and get college credit for your work, school, life, or military experiences. With these credits, you may have already completed up to 75% of your undergraduate degree. You've worked hard to get where you are. It's time to get the recognition you deserve and earn a degree you'll be proud of. One that employers will trust and respect. When you take the next step in your life and career, make it count with Purdue Global, Purdue's online university for working adults. Start your comeback at purdueglobal.edu.
Hi, I am Lacey Lamar.
And I'm also Lacey Lamar. Just kidding, I'm Amber Ruffin.
What?
Okay, everybody, we have exciting news to share. We're back with season 2 of the Amber and Lacey and Amber show on Will Ferrell's Big Money Players Network.
This season, we make new friends, deep dive into my steamy DMs, answer your listener questions, and more.
The more is punch each other. Listen to the Amber and Lacey and Amber show on Will Ferrell's Big Money Players Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Just listen, okay?
Or Lacey gets it. Do it.
In California, during the summer of 1975, within the span of 17 days and less than 90 miles, 2 women did something no other woman had done before: tried to assassinate the President of the United States. One was the protege of Charles Manson.
26-year-old Lynette Fromm, nicknamed Squeaky.
The other, a middle-aged housewife working undercover for the FBI.
Identified by police as Sarah Jean Moore.
The story of one strange and violent summer, this season on the new podcast, Rip Current.
Hear episodes of Rip Current early and completely ad-free and receive exclusive bonus content by subscribing to iHeart True Crime Plus, only on Apple Podcasts.
Hey listeners, it's Jenny. This month we're heading back to school and we're taking you along with us. For all of September, we're bringing back some of our favorite Womanica episodes you might have missed. You'll hear me and some talented guest hosts share both iconic and underappreciated stories. And there's a twist. Each week is dedicated to a different school subject. This week, women you should be learning about in science class. It was hard to narrow this week down. There are so many different fields of science, but I know you're going to love this group of intrepid discoverers and barrier breakers. So, here's one of our favorite Womanicans.
I'm Dr. Ruth Westheimer. During the late 1980s, I hosted almost 500 television shows.
Hello, you are on the air.
Hello. From Wonder Media Network, I'm Jenny Kaplan, and this is Womanica. This month, we're talking about trendsetters, women whose vision, style, and willingness to break barriers changed culture, from what we wear to how we behave. An elderly Jewish woman with a thick German accent sits calmly in the center of your TV screen. At barely 4'7", she's small in stature, but her presence is mighty. A live audience eagerly awaits her advice. This woman has one goal: to help you have better sex. This is Dr. Ruth Westheimer. But let's back up. Long before Dr. Ruth became a TV sensation, she was Karula Ruth Siegel, an orphan of the Holocaust. Born in Germany in 1928, Ruth was just a young girl at the beginning of Hitler's ascent. Ruth's parents sent her to an orphanage in Switzerland to protect her from the horror of the Nazis and their concentration camps. She'd spend the next 7 years there. Ruth was a curious child, but she had limited access to education because of her gender. In lieu of school, she spent hours at night reading books that her boyfriend stole for her and slid under her door. After leaving the orphanage, Ruth searched for her family, but was unable to find them. Alone, Ruth began exploring the world. In these early years, Ruth wore so many hats and lived so many lives, it was hard to know exactly where she would end up. She joined the Jewish underground army, where she learned to shoot by pretending Hitler was her target. She studied psychology in France at the Sorbonne. Eventually, though, she made her way to the U.S., getting her master's in sociology at the New School for Social Research and her Ph.D. at Columbia University. In the 1970s, Ruth put to use her extensive knowledge of psychology, social research, and education by working at Planned Parenthood. She was struck by the lack of information people had about sexual protection and pleasure. And she realized she had a knack for talking about it. One night, Ruth went on a local radio show in New York, talking about the need for sex education. The small segment was a hit. As a result, Ruth got her own radio show called Sexually Speaking, where she gave advice to people on love and sexuality. And radio was just the start.
Wait, let me tell you something. There is no such thing as a vaginal, what you call internal, orgasm as against clitoral orgasm.
But when I talk about sex, it's not to shock, but to educate.
Breasts, you have to take his hand and you have to show him what you need on your belly, on your behind. Show it to him.
Throughout her career, Ruth had a variety of her own shows and appeared on popular network programs like CBS The Tonight Show and Late Night with David Letterman. The sight of this diminutive German woman unabashedly using words like erectile dysfunction, clitoris, and condom on national television caused a stir. Nobody, much less a woman, had ever dared to speak so candidly and publicly about sex before. Soon, people all over America were tuning in to Dr. Ruth's shows or writing to her asking for advice. Whether they wanted to know about the relative merits of vibrators or the reason why they were having trouble orgasming, Dr. Ruth was there to provide endearing and well-informed answers. Ruth's advice went beyond pleasure. During the AIDS crisis, she was an active advocate for LGBTQ+ rights and normalizing different forms of sex. She also stressed the importance of practicing consent and giving people, especially women, autonomy over their sex lives. In 1983, Dr. Ruth published her first book, Dr. Ruth's Guide to Good Sex. Since then, she's published more than 40 more and is still actively writing. In a society where people were scared to interrogate sexuality and where sexual desire was considered taboo, Dr. Ruth provided a safe haven. Her endlessly bleepable anecdotes and information were, for many, the most comprehensive sex education they'd ever received. As Dr. Ruth herself would say, when it comes to sex, the most important 6 inches are between the ears. Thanks for listening to this best of episode of Womanica. For more information, find us on Facebook and Instagram at Womanica Podcast. Special thanks to Liz Kaplan, my favorite sister and co-creator. Join us tomorrow for another one of our favorite episodes honoring the back-to-school season. Talk to you then.
Captain's log. Stardate 2024. We're floating somewhere in the cosmos, but we've lost our map.
Yeah, because you refused to ask for directions.
It's Space Jam. There are no roads.
Good point. So, where are we headed?
Into the unknown, of course. Join us on In Our Own World as we uncover hidden truths, navigate the depths of culture, identity, and the human spirit.
With a hint of mischief.
One episode at a time.
Buckle up and listen to In Our Own World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Trust us. It's out of this world.
There's so much beauty in Mexican culture, like mariachis, delicious cuisine, and even lucha libre. Join us for the new podcast, Lucha Libre Behind the Mask, a 12-episode podcast in both English and Spanish about the history and cultural richness of Lucha Libre. And I'm your host, Santos Escobar, Emperor of Lucha Libre and a WWE superstar. Listen to Lucha Libre Behind the Mask on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you stream podcasts.
What happens when a professional football player's career ends and the applause fades and the screaming fans move on?
I am going to share my journey of how I went from Christianity to now a Hebrew Israelite.
For some former NFL players, a new faith provides answers.
You mix homesteading with guns and church, voila, you got Straightway.
He tried to save everybody.
Listen to Spiraled on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
How do you feel about biscuits? Hi,
I'm Akilah Hughes, and I'm so excited about my new podcast, Rebel Spirit, where I head back to my hometown in Kentucky and try to convince my high school to change their racist mascot, the Rebels, into something everyone in the South loves, the Biscuits.
I was a lady rebel. Like, what does that even mean?
It's right here in black and white in print, so they lie.
It's bigger than a flag or mascot.
Listen to Rebel Spirit on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.